Hey everyone, this is Miss Moriarty and I'm here to discuss with us topic 6.9, which is all about hydroelectric power. So remember, hydroelectric power is going to be electricity generation used by the kinetic energy of water, or the movement of water. Very similar to some of the other fuel sources that we've seen. In this case, we're going to harness the movement of water, maybe even tides, that are going to wind up spinning a turbine, creating mechanical energy. That mechanical energy is then transformed, right, to power a generator and then into electrical energy. Now there's a couple different forms of hydroelectric power, and we saw this within our debate. Some of the more common forms of hydroelectric power are usually associated with dams or the diverting of rivers and streams in order to make them flow a certain way, in order to harness their movement. We could also see tidal power as well, so that's actually what you see in this image here. Now, hydroelectric power is the largest renewable resource that we use globally. Areas like China, Brazil, as well as the US, all are big hydroelectric energy producers. Now, looking at a dam, right? So why do we wind up damming rivers and streams, and how do we wind up using it for energy purposes? Well, what we would call a dam would be actually a water impoundment. So this is where we would store water, typically behind a very large structure, creating a reservoir of water behind the dam. Damming the river can enable operators or engineers to control how much water can pass actually through the turbine, so they can either increase or decrease the electricity production based on the water flow. This can also aid in the control of flow that may happen downstream from our then dam, which could help to prevent any seasonal type flooding that certain areas may experience due to high rainfall. It can actually also provide some ecosystem services, and I believe this did come up a little bit in our debate. So damming a river, creating a large reservoir of water, can create a source of drinking water. It can create cultural ecosystem services, or like recreation, right, like fishing. It can also create educational purposes. It can increase property values, and so on. But in doing so, some of the issues associated with dams can be the flooding of ecosystems behind the dam, since now we are creating a much larger reservoir of water that may not have normally been there to begin with. And we can then also see a buildup of sediment. So as maybe soils get carried along the way, they start to kind of build up actually behind the dam. Now, we have alternatives to hydroelectric besides damming a river, and we can use tidal energy. So this is going to be harnessing the actual movement of typically the ocean water that is driven by the gravitational pull. Now, we could see a run of river system. This is one in where hydroelectricity is usually generated by the flow of a water, so behind a very low dam or maybe even no dam at all. So here we know a dam can divert the natural flow of said river. We can even make man-made channels beside the river. This can be a little less impact than our dam, since we're not now creating a very, very large reservoir of water. We're simply just harnessing the natural movement of that river. But unfortunately, that then leads us to maybe not being able to generate as much electricity, because now it's tough for us to control the flow of that natural river system. Now, some advantages and disadvantages of hydroelectric power. We know it is a renewable energy resource, right, that can bring energy to a large number of people. Does not create any air pollution, right? It's not associated with any waste products or CO2 emissions. The electricity generation can be the least expensive compared to some others. And we said that the reservoirs that are created due to damming rivers can have some recreational opportunities or even economic opportunities. However, the disadvantages, we said creating a reservoir could flood maybe areas now behind that dam. We could see The impoundment of that river, of that very large structure, could create habitat loss. It could displace lots of organisms that originally lived there. This could then prevent maybe some upstream migration of fish like salmon. Downstream can also be impacted as well, especially with what's known as siltation. So as I was saying before in the slide when I talked about dams, when a lot of that soils get carried from the surrounding area into that river and they collect behind that dam, that sedimentation upstream or even downstream can actually create much warmer water, less oxygen. We know that those two factors can play a role in whether or not that organism may experience more physiological stress, which could also impact the way they reproduce and continue to survive in that said ecosystem. Right, so if somewhere on your note packet there, or even on a separate piece of paper, if you want to find a space to then answer our little practice FRQ, here you have to identify and describe a benefit of using hydroelectric power over natural gas. So take a moment and pause the video and answer. All right, at this point we should have answered our FRQ question. So here we could say a definite benefit compared to natural gas using hydroelectric power would be that it is a zero carbon emission fuel source, right? Unlike natural gas, there is no combustion involved in being able to generate electricity. We can simply use the movement or kinetic energy of water to turn a turbine to then produce the electrical energy via a motor. All right, everyone, that's it for our video on hydroelectric power 6.9. If you have any questions, please leave that at the end of the video.